Public transit, it's a good thing. Calls into radio shows, letters to the governor's office. Public transit is the way for the future. So I am very focused on that. I'm going to spare you the esoteric details about the budget formula, but trust me, it's a big deal to me. Water. Water, it's funny, the speaker called me and said in special session, there are two issues, healthcare and water. And I said to him, you know, I've been focused on healthcare so much. In my constituency, what a huge issue it is, healthcare reform, and I have ideas about this, and he knows that. But he said to me, frankly, I need you more on water, because there's this new special session on water issues. Did you see, who saw what's happening in Long Beach now, over the weekend? What's happening in Long Beach? Water, you have the 10% cut, right, in water, right? It's coming here. You know, if we don't cut 10% here, we have to cut 20% next year. Because we live, it's trite to say it, we live in a desert. And the state, you know, there's no more water, right? We just keep using the same water that's been around for millennia. The question is how we get it and how we use it. And global warming is changing the way we have to look at this. Our sources of water are going to be very seriously affected by global warming. There's a plan for that. We could be conserving and doing more. How many of you know how much more water we use in Los Angeles now than we used in 1990? Want to take a guess? Rick? It's the same. Rick's right. We don't use any more water now than we used in 1990. Consider that for a second. It's because of you. And some important laws, but you've been abiding by them, right? Low flow toilets, different watering patterns, recycling something. There's a bunch of good stuff we've been doing, so we have more than 1 million more people than we had in 1990 and used no more water. What a success story. But we have to do more than that. And when I took this assignment a few days ago, I said to the Speaker of the Assembly, I think to my constituency, there are few issues more esoteric or more boring than water until you have to cut your use by 10 or more %, right? Then suddenly it's real. So this is one of those kind of thankless things, but it's a huge issue. And to give you the broad strokes of my views on this, the governor proposed that we build a bunch of new dams to store water. I think building dams is very ineffective for many reasons. It costs a ton of money. They aren't going to be online for 2 decades. It is much cheaper to find innovative ways that we know about to conserve water and to recycle water and to do other things that we can talk about later. And I'm going to say one controversial thing here on this. Remember, when I was on the city council, somebody, maybe it was the Daily News or Joel Lack, somebody coined the term toilet to tap to refer to recycling water. And Joel was a friend of mine and a very smart guy and a very skilled guy. I think did not do us a service in that little statement. Because you could easily have said instead, showers to flowers. And that would have more accurately told the story. Because we will need in Los Angeles to recycle water and devote it, not to drinking water, but to irrigation, non-potable stuff. And we have to do it now. And there's going to be, many of you may think that's a bad idea, but I have to tell you, we aren't making new water, so we have to recycle what we have in some manner, and there are many ways that are easy and cost-effective to make recycled water usable for our vegetation, our plants, other stuff. And why the heck aren't we doing that? Because otherwise, we're going to have to do things much more draconian. I don't want to live in a regime where every year we're cutting our water by 10% more. And all those people are coming here anyway. We got to do something about it, right? So let's be creative as a team. And when I talk to you about water in the future, recognize I'm trying to find cost-effective, science-based ways to maintain the best aspects of our quality of life. See, that's why I ran for office again. You know, I mean, for me, being in office is about finding practical ways to do things that in your daily lives will make things better. If you're looking for a nursing home, if you're trying to combat gun violence on the street, if you're trying to get from one place to another on a traffic-choked corridor, if you're trying to find a way to assure that your grandchildren or your kids have enough water to survive, this is significant stuff. And many of you, I know, when I ran for assembly, said to me, why are you doing that? And what you basically were saying to me is, people in the assembly couldn't find any job anyplace else. They're up there. and they're doing a lousy job. And I know that's what you were saying. Maybe you said it explicitly to me. I have found, in general, that the work is very intense, very hard. As you can tell from these topics, you've got to be very eclectic to do this job well. I haven't talked about 2/3 of the things that are on my mind every day substantively. You have to know a lot of subjects, and you have to have skill in finding your way from an idea to getting the governor to sign something. It's actually a very cool thing. It's just that the job is in Sacramento, so I've flown 120 flights in the last 7 months. I know that you want to have questions. I want to share one anecdote with you and then take questions. Going back to my bills for a second, and to Sacramento. I am, as you know, a very idealistic person. And I have key priorities for how I want to govern. And the subject areas I'm focused on most are education, transportation, healthcare, and the environment, as opposed to an array of other things. Insurance, banking, agriculture. Those things are of lesser interest to me. The big issues are the other ones. So I had 3 environmental bills that were very important to me that did not make it this year. And I have to say they didn't make it in large part because, as in every legislative body, there is a lot of power in some, well, I'll give you an example, in some opponent's territory. I had a bill to require that in 5 years, half the new cars sold in California run on alternative fuels. Pretty ambitious bill, right? Run alternative fuels. Now, you might say, well, that's a pie-in-the-sky idea. Well, actually, the big 3 automakers last fall, when they were trying to get Congress not to put pressure on them to increase their fuel standards very much, said they could attain that goal in 5 years. So when I had, as you might imagine, the world's leading automakers and the oil industry guys in my office, I said, I'm just doing what you said you could do. Very narrowly, that bill didn't make it. A lot of horsepower on the other side. I had a bill, and I'm going to reintroduce a version of that bill. I'm very focused on global warming issues. For me, this is a legacy kind of thing for kids. Another bill. Our landfills have too much junk in them that doesn't belong there. And our beaches have too much stuff. And our oceans have too much plastic in them. And so I had a bill to ban the use of styrofoam and other non-recyclable food containers, right? Now, in LA, we're starting to recycle styrofoam, and therefore it could still be used here under my bill. Came very close, but a lot of my colleagues, including Democratic colleagues, got very skittish about bucking some of the plastics guys, and some restaurant guys too, but they're wrong, because many of you have used recycled materials when you take home food from some restaurants. It's available stuff. But the bill that I really was uptight about not getting out of the legislature, because I was this close, was a bill that is based on a news story. The bill, I did the bill first, but the news story confirms the importance of it, that ran on the front page of the Times about 4 months ago. How many of you saw the story, which noted that the world's leading scientists now say that children in the womb are pre-programmed to get cancer and diabetes, and you can never unprogram them because their mothers are exposed to toxics every day? Maybe you see that story? A horrifying story. And yet there is something we can do about that. And so I had a bill that would change the entire paradigm of how California deals with toxics in health. As a bill, instead of dealing with toxics by trying to contain them, which we do like in landfills and stuff, or in like Springfield, these big pits of stuff. Instead of doing that, reduce the use of toxics at the inception of the manufacturing process. It's a bill modeled on one state's efforts. Massachusetts has done this very successfully for 18 years. And I got this bill through the Assembly, including from some very conservative people, because they know that we need a science-based approach to this issue. You know, how many of you know, what is the rate of, how much more breast cancer is there in San Francisco than here? Twice as much. Is that because of genetics? Is that because people happen to move to San Francisco who are predisposed to it? No, there's an environmental cause here. The toxics issue is a very practical issue. And literally in the last day, well, we finished the last legislative